I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. We're days away from days away from a moment of inflection, I think, in the history of our country, the history of our people, history of the world, and that is the November election. Let me remind you, if you're not registered, do so. If you can vote early, do so. If you can make sure that everybody in your household, in your neighborhood, in your block, in your network is registered and votes, do so. I think what's on the table for our country and for our people is critical, and we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to those who came before us to show up, stand up, speak up, and vote. And we owe it to the future, those whose paths we are preparing. We owe it to them to create a path to freedom and a path to capability, ability, a path to enjoying imagination, to becoming productive as human beings. And we have the duty, have the assignment, the opportunity to make that so. So I remind you to vote. If you got something to say about that, we'd love to have you in the conversation. You can join the conversation by simply clicking on the comments section. We're streaming this program across several platforms. We're live on YouTube for Insight News MN. We're live on Black Press USA YouTube. We're also streaming on Twitter, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. No matter where you're connecting from, we value and thank you for your engagement. We want you to help us expand our network, our circle of communication, and you can do that by becoming a subscriber. Go to the Insight News MN channel on YouTube and click the subscribe button. It costs you nothing, but it gets you notified when we go live. Like and share. We're looking to get 2,000 subscribers, and you should be one of those. And everybody you know, ask them to join us and join you in subscribing to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Background-wise, I'm a journalist. I'm a reporter. I own Insight News. Insight News is Minnesota's largest circulation ethnic newspaper, and we are doing phenomenal work. We have for 50 years already. And one of the innovations that I'm most proud of, one of many, but the one that I'm currently excited about, is that we've introduced a section in the paper that we call Afrodescendientes. Afrodescendientes means people of African descent. And that comes from, first of all, my own Afro-Latino or Afro-Cuban roots. My father, as I've told you before, is from Cuba, his family from Jamaica. All of that, though, and I was born here in this country, first generation, but all of that adds up to my statement of identity. I identify myself as an African in the New World, a New World African. I identify as an African human being. And so our mission at the newspaper is to create a space to articulate our presence in a variety of places, geographies around the world, and in a variety of idioms of language. So Afrodescendientes, the section of Insight News, it runs twice a month or so right now, eventually weekly, presents one article, most often written by our colleague and editor who's based in Venezuela, Jose Chucho Garcia. He's a diplomat, and he presently is stationed in Benin in Nigeria. He writes one article, historical piece, cultural piece about the Cimarrones, the Cimarronage experience, the Maroonage experience, the Zumbista experience for the African people that were enslaved in South America and in the Caribbean. And that piece we translate into several languages. We present it in Spanish, how he writes it. I translate it into English. We present it in Portuguese. We present the same article in French for our Haitian brothers and Francophone African. We present the same article in Yoruba, and we present it in Swahili. We present the same article in uh, uh, also Somali. So the idea is one story, one truth, one experience, but we approach that with a variety of experiences, and those experiences include language experiences. This is an innovation, and it's a way to connect us globally around issues that are essentially local, timeless, eternal, and that have to do with culture. And our objective is to send the examination of both the past and the future in the experience and the sensibility of an Africana way of knowing. Well, with that, I'm pleased to have a marvelous guest today to talk about our experience in building family, building individuals, building community, and in particular, an institution that has global presence, powerful presence here in Minnesota, and that institution is the Girl Scouts. Joining me today, Marissa C. Williams, who leads at the intersection of passion and purpose. She's the leader, the chief executive officer of Girl Scouts River Valleys, and she sees that assignment, that work, as a divine assignment. She's a described non-traditional Girl Scout. She's not afraid to go against the grain. She embraces failure as a part of the process, and she pursues unconventional opportunities and paths toward success. Prior to joining Girl Scouts River Valleys, she held roles as the chief executive officer of Hearth. That's Pittsburgh, and regional executive director of YMCA of Greater Pittsburgh. He's also served on the board of Imani Christian Academy and Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, both based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's got a bachelor's degree from the University of Pittsburgh and executive leadership certificate from Carnegie Mellon University, actively involved in her local chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Investing in people is at the heart of her leadership philosophy, from supporting the whole well-being of the staff she leads and serves, to bringing more Girl Scout voices into decision-making tables. She's got a talent for complex problem solving and growing organizational relevance. She hopes to create more opportunities for people who've been historically marginalized and silenced, while at the same time inspiring this generation of Girl Scouts to celebrate difference in all of its many forms. Well, joining her, and I'll bring them both on in 1 second, is her colleague and team partner, Paulette Bonheur. And she'll correct me if I'm saying the name wrong. I'm giving it a French pronunciation. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. Paulette is a passionate change maker, trailblazing her path on her terms, her own terms as well. She's got an MS in educational leadership, and she puts her education in practice by contributing 14 years of service in the higher education field in various roles. She's now serving proudly as the director of new strategic initiatives at Girl Scouts River Valleys. She uses her breadth of skills to impact young people's lives. She's a 4-time transplant recipient, and she says, and she shows that she is grabbing life by the horns. She teaches others to take action and to take their own story forward. She's the proud daughter of Liberian immigrants, raised by a single mother, and knows a thing or two about hard work. Her contributions as a consultant, a speaker, storyteller, community volunteer, and author have helped thousands of people. When she's not working and making an impact in community, she's racing to keep up with her busy 4 and 8-year-olds, enjoying quality time with her loud, loving Liberian family. What wonderful guests. Thank you both, Paulette and Marissa, for being here today. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane.
Thank you so much for having us on.
You know, I love presenting these bios because people are just so fascinating, and so rich and so deep in their experience and their knowledge. And it's just a joy to create a place for you to share your vision, your thought. Thank you so much. Well, Marissa, let me start with you. Let's go with, Girl Scout 101. Why are we here? And what's in your heart? What's on your mind right now, top of mind? And both of you, let's make sure that everything you need to say gets said in this conversation. You
Yes.
take control of the conversation and make sure we don't end up saying, oh, I should have said, I should have said. Look,
Yeah.
we got to say it. Okay, Marissa.
I love that, Al. And I think before the conversation's over, you're going to learn that Paulette and I don't hold back too much. So it's going to be a good so when you think about Girl Scouts, you know, Al, what do you think about? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
My daughters were Girl Scouts. So
I love that.
so
Awesome.
scouting as a place where children can learn to network, learn to share, develop skills of cooperation, collaboration, and learning specific technical skills, things you can do. I was a scout, so I have that experience. So I remember, I'm 77 now. I remember 5 year old being a Cub Scout, 5, 6, 7 years old. I was young, but I was a Cub Scout. So scouting means a lot to me.
That's awesome. And I would say, when I think about the 17,000 girls that we serve in Minnesota, Wisconsin, River Valleys, you know, I think a lot of their sentiments are the same. But what we need to make sure that the majority of the population knows is exactly what you just said, thinking about technical skills. And so one of the things that I've kind of coined coming here is, you know, Girl Scouts is so much more than cookies, camps, and crafts. We want to develop the leaders for the next generation. We want to be a part of that experience because they're going to be the leaders of the next generation. We just have to make sure that we're pouring into them what we need them to know so that they are prepared to inherit what we're passing on to them. And so for me, Girl Scouts, I say once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. I was a brownie and I sold the cookies. I got my top cookie seller award. And I was like, yes, I climbed this mountain. I can move on and do something else. And, you know, lo and behold, almost, 40 years later, it's like, hey, I think we need to come back and do a full circle moment. And so now, serving as the CEO of Girl Scouts, I get to pour back into little ones and not so little ones, as we'll talk about later on today. Everything that I think we probably thought we needed as teens, tweens, and elementary educated girls to take on the world that we're about to inherit.
Well, speaking of Girl Scout cookies, I know when my daughters got to that part of the season where it was cookie selling time, really they probably were annoyed with their dad because I was excited. And so my thing is, we got to do the most. We got to get the most sold. So I'm out hustling, everybody I know. But the point is, this gives a place for dads and moms and sisters and brothers to join, support, to demonstrate value. Right? How much we value the experience of the child, and it elevates that child, his or her sense of importance, because they are important. And this is a way for us to demonstrate our support of that idea. So
absolutely. Cooperative economics, right?
There we go. and so you've got the Girl Scout Leadership Institute. What is it and who does it serve?
Yeah, so go ahead, Rosa.
I just wanted to put a quick plug in there. So when we received Miss Kinsey Scott funding several years ago, we wanted to make sure that the funding we received didn't just go into the bank and sit there. We wanted to make an impact, and not just on our current Girl Scouts, but girls who had no idea what Girl Scouting even was. And so this is the seed that was planted. And now I'm really excited about the garden that we are about to experience through this Girl Scout Leadership Institute. And I'll let Paulette kind of take over. This is her baby.
Paulette.
Yeah, so I get so excited, Al. I feel like, this job was meant for me. When you were talking about...
Did I say your name properly, first of all?
First of all, you said it the pronunciation that you would if you were in France, likely, but we say bonheur. But bonheur is good time in French. And so we are going to have a good time today. That's for sure.
All right.
But, I always tell people this job was meant for me. I left a 14-year higher education career. I worked with college students all the time, and it's a pivotal point when you're helping, young folks transition into adolescence. So when I had a conversation with Marissa and we were talking about this thing, I was like, I don't know if that's for me. I'm doing my own thing, and I don't really know if that's what I want to do. And when she talked about who we would be serving, I thought about my own experience and the mentors that I wish I had and the people that I wish looked out for me. I thought about the students that I worked with every single day on a college campus and the relationships I have and had and still have with them. And I thought about the Girl Scouts that I get to mentor. So I didn't have the experience of being a Girl Scout when I was younger, because like a lot of youth in diverse communities, my mom didn't have the time. She was working full time. She couldn't be my troop leader, and she was from Liberia. She didn't know how to sign up for Girl Scouting. It wasn't something that was at the top of her mind. And when my daughter became of age, I wanted to do that for her. And so for the past 4 years now, I've been leading one of our BIPOC mentor troops. So it all started out as fun and games, Al. It wasn't Leadership Institute at the forefront. It was, I'm leading these Black and brown girls to success, and that's just what we're going to do. Throughout that process, what I learned is that the skills that we're teaching them, they also need somewhere to go when they get later into their Girl Scouting career. So the Girl Scout Leadership Institute is a program, and we're piloting with our high school students, our 9th through 12th graders, really to help them get all the additional skills they need to be successful. They still get to join Girl Scouts through a different pathway, so they don't have to wait around for, mom or auntie or someone who's available. They can come to our Leadership Institute, sign up as a Girl Scout, and we focus on main pillars such as leadership. Obviously, we want our girls to be great leaders in the community, and they already are. They're doing phenomenal work. I know the 14 girls that I have are already little leaders in their own right. We focus on mental health. There is a lot happening with mental health. I worked on a college campus for 14 years. I work with youth, and we know that that's an area we need to focus on. College preparation. When I was going to college, it was, all right, well, I filled out this application and they accepted me, so that's where I'm going to go. There was no rhyme or reason. I didn't have a lot of help. My cousin helped me fill out my financial aid application, my FAFSA, on her computer, just like randomly. And those are things I wish I could have done, but I didn't have the resources to do or the people even to ask. I didn't know who to ask. And then last but certainly not least, career and workforce development. Our girls are going to be ready to walk into any career field, STEM, whether it's education, whatever they want to do, and be confident, bold, and fearless leaders. And so those are the things that we're focusing on in the Girl Scout Leadership Institute. But we're having a lot of fun. I feel like sometimes you think of Girl Scouting and, it is about cookies and entrepreneurship, but there's a lot of fun that happens. And within that, there's a lot of strategic working in the background to make sure that our girls are supported with mentors who look like them, who come from various backgrounds that they can learn from, and who really want to support them. So the Girl Scout Leadership Institute really is a new approach to Girl Scouting, really focusing on older girls because we know they need us and we need them too.
Older means what? What's the age group?
9th through 12th grade high school students.
9th through 12th. Okay, great. That's awesome. I mentioned that my daughters were Girl Scouts, and they were part of a troop that was situated at Zion Baptist Church. And I believe that Mrs. Bertha Smith, rest in peace, was the Scout Master, or I don't know what you called it. It was a Scout Master, troop leader. And I don't know if that troop still exists or not. And so one of the reasons I'm so glad to speak with you is that, once my girls kind of termed out and aged out, I didn't stay connected, though I should have. And one of the goals that I'm having in this moment is to make sure that we leave here with a mechanism for Insight News and McFarlane Media to stay connected, to stay supportive, and for our platform to be baked into your development strategy so that you can communicate broadly with our community and highlight the successes of the children that you are mentoring and serving, but also elevate the principles that are storied and that are just, correct. So, And so you're working, getting mentors. What and who are some of the partners that you work with to bring this program forward?
Yes, well, we are very excited because this is something that a lot of people are interested in. They are interested in the well-being of girls, especially our adolescents as they transition, because it's such a pivotal time. We're fortunate enough to have partnership with Wells Fargo, has been amazing. Their partnership and continued support has been phenomenal. So we're excited for that. Alina Health, they have jumped on as partners with us, leading some of the mental health pieces, right? Because they have a lot of extensive research in the world of mental health directly in community. And so we're excited to partner with them. Advent Talent, right? Out in Edina, women-owned business. They're partnering with us because we want to make sure these ladies are ready for the career and workforce. They're going to step into any space prepared. So we gotta get them up to par. And so those are some of the partners we're working with. And on the educational front, the University of St. Thomas has really stepped on and said, hey, we're going to help you champion this. We want to be at the forefront while you're planting the seeds because we know it's going to grow and really serve as a pipeline. I think even Al, you talked about how we can get connected, and it is very important. I always say for our girls to be seen and heard. Now, traditionally in the culture, sometimes they say a child's place is to be seen, not heard. That is not true. We need to hear from our girls. You talked about at the top of the program how political advocacy is so important, political involvement is so important. Well, how are we going to know what they think if we don't hear them, if we don't hear their voices, if we don't hear their opinions? So it is very critical. And that's why it is amazing that our partners have stepped on to help us, and that we also have support from folks in the community like yourself that really want to help us amplify this program, amplify this message, but also amplify the work, because the girls at the end of the day are going to benefit from it.
Marissa, how do you know when you're having success? What are the metrics? What are the processes for determining whether or not you're on track? How do you set goals and then measure your performance against that so that you and the community and the children that you work with all know that progress is afoot?
Well, I think the first thing that we really wanted to make sure that we understood as we were setting out to, solve this problem, right? We have so many girls who are leaving Girl Scouts when they get to middle school. What is that about? Is it sports? Is it time? Is it capacity? And what we realized is it's all of those things, but probably principally Girl Scouts didn't come across as a cool thing to do anymore. And when you're going through middle school, everything is about how you show up, right? So, and I think about Inside Out 2 all the time. I took my son and my godson to see it. And they shouted out in the middle of the movie, I don't want to go through puberty, right? Because they were like, is this when your emotions start to act crazy? And I said, guys, it's really not a choice. I'm sorry. It's going to happen. But when we think about that age group, we have to meet them where they are. We have to bring them into the conversation and say, so what would make this good? What would make this attractive to you? How can we have the conversations that you want to have? And maybe we're not the ones leading it. And so we have a program called GS Lead within Girl Scouts. And we had 10th grade girls. They were deciding who was going to come up to the new CEO and give her feedback. And so they both came over. I said, you guys can both tell me, what do you think? What do you need? He said, Miss Marissa, I think this is great, but we're going to be adults soon. 14 years old. I'm like, pause for reaction. So I had to keep my face together. I said, And I said, these conversations with 8th graders, it's good, but we need to know how to fill out a checkbook. We need to know how to open up a bank account. We need to know what should be on our resume. We need to go find jobs. We're going to be in college pretty soon. And I said, you know what, girls, we are actually actively working on a program that will launch next fall that speaks to all of the things that you're talking about. And so as we were asking for feedback from our young people, they were affirming all of the things that we were putting in place. So one, it's making sure that we're answering and solving the problem for our target audience, which is our girls. It will always start and end with the impact on our young people. Then we want to make sure that we're targeting our corporate partners to think about Girl Scouts in a different way. Yeah, you think about them when they're entrepreneurs between February and March with cookies.
Mm-hmm.
But are you looking at the 17,000 girls that we have as your potential future workforce? And if you're not, you need to start, because they are ready to take on those opportunities, to really think about who is the next CEO of US Bank? Who's the next Corey from Best Buy? It's probably already at Girl Scouts. We just need to nurture them and provide those core competencies so that they can grow into what they're meant to become.
Who's the next Kamala Harris,
There you
president of the
There you
And
United
you
States?
know what,
Right.
Al? We had a conversation about that, because I remember being in 5th grade, and everybody always asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think all the girls that always got talks too much on their report card, right? They're all doing amazing things because we had leadership skills. That's all that was. We were trying to hold court in the middle of class, right? And so my 5th grade teacher asked me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, you know what? I think I'd like to be the president.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me and she said, Marissa, I think you have to pick something else, because I just don't think that's possible.
Hmm.
And so when I think about that little girl
Mm-hmm.
that looked up to her 5th grade teacher like she was an amazing person, I think about the young girls growing up today and knowing that there's not a teacher nor an adult that can tell them they can't do a thing because it's actively being done. And that gives me goosebumps. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know, you were mentioning sort of pivoting the organization to engage teenage young girls, young women, and and you mentioned 14 as you know, sort of a platform of awareness about future. And but then you turned around and talked about yourself in the 5th grade, so you might have been probably 10, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And Marissa, I think back, I remember when I was in 3rd, 4th, I remember when I was in 1st grade. I remember kindergarten actually, but I remember kind of what I was doing, and I remember what I was thinking, and I remember what I understood the world to be at each of those ages, like when I was 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. And I remember in 4th and 5th grade becoming really conscious about the globe and its inhabitants, because my parents bought the encyclopedia World Book one year.
Yeah.
Well, the World Book first. Then after a couple of years, I think when my cousins got the World Book too, or either they got the Britannica, my competitive parents bought Britannica as well. But I just remember being so fascinated with getting books and just going through pages and pages and pages and dreaming about knowing the planet Earth, you know, and the people and the plants and the places in it. And I raise that point to say that I think too often maybe it's proper training, I'm not sure, but we underestimate the ability of young people to comprehend and understand and to articulate their understanding about the world. And I think, you know, 5th, 6th grade, I think that's exactly the right time when kids can decide that they will be, you know, a person whose life is consequential. And that's what you did. And so I'm so happy that organizations like Girl Scouts are able to step in and nurture and grow that. And I'm so happy to hear that you're also making sure that you continue. You don't let it drop off or disappear or dissipate under the pressure of all the other things that are happening, which are real. But you're saying, look, this is part of reality too, and part of our gift is to enable you to navigate this, still focused on the efficacy, the morality, the opportunity to be good and do good as a human being. That's what I hear you saying.
That's exactly it. It sums it up. When I think about what you talked about in reading the bio, the passion and purpose intersection, this is the divine assignment. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. How do we make sure our young girls aren't searching for who they are in their 20s and 30s? They found it at Girl Scouts when they were 11. That's what I want. to be the legacy of this program.
Well, you mentioned being a fifth grader. Who were you when you were 5? What was the world like? Where were you? Who was around you? And
Yeah.
how did the world look to you as a 4 and 5-year-old child? Take that back. As a 4 and 5-year-old human being.
Okay, so 4 or 5 years old, or 4th and 5th grade?
No, 4 years old, 5 years old.
Oh, it was
Kindergarten.
limitless,
Mhm.
right? When you think about it, everything that you wanted to do, wanted to be, you could see yourself becoming those things. And at 4 and 5 years old, I didn't have a concept of difference being a bad thing. Difference was celebrated at 4 and 5. And so when I think about, my parents, and I'm the oldest of 6, and so I was always bossy because I was always telling somebody what to do and what not to do because I'd been here longer. So you got to listen to me, right? I know the things. You have to follow me. And so it was an exciting time, and there were absolutely no limits to the possibilities. And I think more of us probably need to spend more time in our 4 and 5-year-old selves.
Where did you grow up? Where did you grow up? And tell me
I
about
grew up
your
it's Media,
parents.
Pennsylvania, so
Mhm.
10 minutes outside of Philadelphia, PA.
Mhm.
So East Coast girl.
Okay, talk about your family. I mean, so the question is, whose shoulders do you stand on? Who are the grands and the great grands and the ancestors who
Yes.
pour into Marissa Williams' presence on November 9th, 2024?
So
What's the link from the beginning to now?
absolutely. So when I think about, how I came to be, I am a child of parents who did not get married, but my mom married a wonderful man who adopted me at the age of 2, and we created this blended family, and it was an amazing experience for me to be the oldest child, and live with my grandfather. I used to tell folks all the time, I grew up in a house with 9 people. Let me tell you what patience prayers will do for you. Okay. And especially in those teenage years where you have 9 people and 1 restroom, you're going to figure out how to be patient and how to get some things done. And so when I think about the 5 kids other than myself that grew up in the house, everything was loud. Everything was always something was always happening. My grandfather was the still, quiet spirit in the home that if Pop-Up looked at you a certain way, you knew you had to straighten up. He didn't have to say much. And when we reflect on, family time, we always say we were a little different because we were the family that went to church every Sunday, and every Sunday night we had dinner together, all of us at the same time. And Lord knows what we talked about because, at 4 and 5 years old, and even as we got older, those teenage years, we were all sitting around the table, still having dinner, still talking to each other. And those family ties are the things that make our focus now as parents. We're like, how do we bring our families back together when we're living all over the country? Because back in the day, you grew up, you got married to people that were right around you, and your family stayed very close. My brother lives in Atlanta. Another one lives in Philadelphia. I'm here, and I have two brothers one in North Carolina, one in Florida, and a sister in Florida. We're spread out. So we got to jump on Delta when we want to go do something and see each other and come together. But it's a blessing that we're able to do it.
When did you see yourself becoming aware and at whatever level involved in presidential politics in the consideration? When did you start thinking about who would be elected? I mean, and I don't mean when you were over 18 and able to vote, or 21 able to vote, but when you were a kid, when did the idea of an election start tugging at your mind and your spirit to give you to require you to pay attention, to think about it?
So I remember watching an inauguration when I was in 3rd grade in the library at school. And so just seeing the pomp and circumstance and who was present, one of the things I remembered very clearly is who wasn't present when I was looking at that television. Who wasn't visible? I wasn't seeing folks that looked like me in that inauguration process. And so when I think about that experience in 3rd grade, maybe that 5th grade response made sense to me. And I just accepted it as such. It's just not the way that it is. But being able to figure out, how do you take voices that aren't present and make sure that they are? My 6th grade year, I said, you know what? We don't celebrate Black History Month in this school. We need to fix that. And so I gathered my friends and a guidance counselor and said, how do we create a Black History program at Strathaven Middle School? And we did it. And it went on for 20 years. And it was an amazing legacy to be able to lead. And that happened because we saw that there was something missing and said, well, we can fix that. We're 11. That was when the Marissa, at the time, Bartley, disruptor was born.
Awesome. Awesome. Paulette, same question. Whose shoulders do you stand on when you think about your own personal genealogy? Which ancestors speak to you and speak through you?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And I always think about my family because they were not initially from here. So the first question I always ask is, why did you come here? Like, with all the snow, you didn't pick anywhere else. But my family came here through chain migration. And so my mom worked at White Castle, and we had to eat White Castle all the time. So although shout out to the folks that love it, I had a lot of it growing up. And when she came, her siblings had started to come slowly but surely. And we built a whole community. There's a large Liberian community in Brooklyn Park, and that's ultimately where we ended up settling. But I grew up on the north side. So in Minneapolis, my mom worked a lot, and it was a neighborhood that took care of us. So the street lights would tell us when it was time to go inside.
Where'd you grow up? Where in North Memphis did you grow up?
Right on Austin Highway. In the townhomes, right on Austin Highway. So many memories. Right down the street from KMOJ. We used to walk all around the neighborhood.
My sister lived there. My cousin lived there. So I know the property. Yeah.
Everybody lived in the townhomes, and it was a community of people. And we found community there. And then after we moved from Minneapolis, we moved to Brooklyn Park, and we started to find a little bit more of a community. But when I think about my family, really my mom and her siblings, her sisters, they took care of us. It was a community and a communal approach to raising us. If my mom couldn't do it, one of her siblings was stepping in to help out. I would go to my aunt's house, and we would set the table, but we would also have to pick greens and cut greens that she got from the farmer's market. I don't want to do this no more. But those are all things that helped us to be so resilient, right? Seeing how hard my mom worked as someone who was new to this country. She had her own business for so many years. For over 2 decades, she had a business in North Minneapolis. And then she had a business in Brooklyn Park where she was an entrepreneur selling African clothes, African fabric, and doing all these things. And she just always was unapologetic. The women in my family are fierce and just always unapologetic, speaking their mind. And I was like that when I was younger. And I felt like there was a time that I just was like, I'm not going to say anything anymore. I'm tired of talking. People don't deserve my voice. It's not cool to be who I am. And it took a while for me to figure out, like, hey, my voice actually matters. And I have a lot to say. Clearly, I have a lot to say all the time. But what I have to say is important, and it could change lives. And I think about my mom, what she went through, my aunts, what they went through. And then now I have sisters and my nieces and nephews and my own kids. I'm like, we are standing literally on the backs of our ancestors because they built this family brick by brick and piece by piece. So when I get an opportunity, I had the opportunity to go to college and to get a master's degree and to work at a college and impact lives. Students would come and be like, so you work here, but you okay, this is interesting. I've never seen it before. And I would go into the high schools. I had all the Twin Cities high schools when I recruited, and I would go in there and they would tell me, well, my friend said it's not cool because I talk a certain kind of way. I said, okay, well, in 5 years, is your friends going to be paying your bills? How does that work for you? Right? Let me know. Is that going to work? And so we would have these real conversations. And it was after I did my spiel, and they would stick around for the real conversations. And I was like, you know what? You just got to tell them how it is. And so my whole career in education was, listen, this is what I think. Here's what I know would be good for you. What do you want to do? And those real conversations with students, thinking back to, the times that I had when I didn't think I was enough, when I didn't think that, maybe my accent or the way that my mom talked, or maybe where we grew up, or any of those things weren't enough. They all were enough, and they were more than enough for the students I was working with and the youth I was working with. So every single time I think of the opportunities that I have, I think of my family and how strong they are. And it would be a shame and it would be remiss if I didn't use my voice to impact the next generation of leaders.
You went to North High or Henry or Washburn?
I
Where'd
did
you go?
not. I did not. So I went to Ramsey first, and then I
Ramsey.
left Ramsey and I went to Park Center. And I was a prom queen at Park Center High School. So,
Okay.
I
All right.
love all my constituents. But I finished out at Park Center High School, and it was a great experience. I literally love the community. I love all the things that it taught me. I used to get on the bus. I would go downtown Minneapolis. I would go to Mall of America. I would go volunteer, get on the bus with my cousins. We would go volunteer because there was always this sense of, people helped us, so you can help other people out too. And it's always been something that's inside of me, is like, how are we changing the narrative? How are we helping the situation? Don't talk about it, do it. Don't complain about it, get it done. What's your solution? And I think the Girl Scouts that we work with, they are the same. They have problems, they want solutions. They can help us figure it out. But as adults and as leaders and as mentors, it is our job to help them navigate this thing that we call life. And life is life right now. And we have to help them navigate that. So that's where my excitement comes in, to really be part of Girl Scouts and help change the future generation. But also, I have a heart for the younger girls, because I still have 14 youth that I mentor in my BIPOC mentor troop. So
Super. Well, same question. And because we're in the political season, I'm always happy to ask the question: when did you become aware of the reality of politics? I'll put one more layer in the question for you. Not only as a child, when did you start hearing and thinking about or considering, noticing stuff on the radio and in the paper about politics, but then as a first generation, you're born here, right? Born here.
Yes. Yep.
First generation, the family talks about the political challenges at home. So how does that sense of political engagement show up in your life? When does it show up? And how does that evolve as you mature into adulthood?
I always said, I don't like politics. I don't want anything to do with politics, because my family and back home, the way that they talked about politics, I mean, there's a lot happening back home in the political realm. This year was a huge election year for Liberia. We had a woman president before. So Liberia has had a woman president before. It has been done. And they were very much always talking about what's going on back home. How does that affect our family? Those kinds of things. And I have an aunt. And if you ask my 8-year-old, what is her aunt watching right now, she'll tell you politics, CNN, ESPN, whatever, but she's watching politics. And you would think that she wanted to be a politician. I personally never wanted any involvement, because I thought, it's just corrupt, right? There's just too much. And during my high school, I think I was college, a freshman in college, they said, we had the opportunity to vote, and a lot of us were away from home. And Hurricane Katrina had happened. And so there were some displaced students that had come up here. And so a girl named Faye, she was an older student from New Orleans. She asked me if I was going to vote. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And Faye made me get my bill and get all this stuff. And she literally took me to go vote. And I have been voting ever since. So shout out to Faye. And I, wear my red. I have college pictures of me in my red, white, and blue going to the polls, because I didn't realize the importance of having my voice be heard. But when Faye told me, like, girl, you need to get up here and get this bill. We got to go vote. I don't know what you thought you were going to do tonight, but I was like, okay, sure. She's an upperclassman. And I really started to see, in terms of, the politics and the political realm, how it affects what we do on an everyday basis, and also our local politics. Now, fast forward, when I worked at the community college, I was at North Hennepin for 9 years. I was the advisor of our student senate. And a lot of our students were not eligible to vote based on their status. And what we figured out was, hey, how can you still impact voting even if you can't vote? You still have a voice. You can still make a difference. You can still make an impact. How do you plan to do that? And let us help you come up with a plan. And advocacy and civic engagement is a part of your college experience. It is all right, but also your voice needs to be heard, because what is happening is going to affect you. And so our student senate, the current student senate president at North Hennepin Community College, she'll be at our launch event tomorrow talking about her experience and how, her adolescence has transitioned, but very, very much involved and engaged in making sure that our youth know that they have a place in politics wherever they see fit. And that means a lot of different things. So
I'm going to say 3 names and have you both react to them. And in the context of your work as mentors, as leaders, as thought shapers, the names are Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Ketanji Brown Jackson. What are your thoughts, Marisa?
Each one of those women hold the title of first.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is that so far, they're not the last. They're creating space for other people to see themselves walk in their own good pair of heels, right? Because we don't want to step in other people's shoes. We want to bring our new ones to the table. And I see and think about the amount of power, restraint, and grace that they have had to have and exhibit and continue to exhibit. Because even though they have changed the narrative of history in each of their individual walks, there are no amount of attacks that have not come to them because of the magic and the power that they have inside them around their divine assignment and what they were called to do.
Paulette, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I started dancing because I said, there we go. I love that. A lot of times when you ask, why me? I think the question flips in my mind to why not me, right? Why not those names? And why not more names? Because there's just so much trailblazing history when you bring up those names. Regardless of what your opinion about the individuals are, there is so much history. There is so much success. There's a track record that says they always took the extra steps to say, why not me? I can be the one to make the change. And so when I think about the girls that I get to work with, when I think about the future, when we can say, oh, you said you couldn't do that, but Ketanji's over here. What was that now? Okay, we have tangible examples that it has been done before, which means it can continue to be done and we can do more. I get excited. I get excited for the future.
Let me throw sort of a, in my mind, not a curveball, but a hardball at you guys. As you discharge your responsibilities for nurturing young thinkers and young doers and launching futures that work, how do you address this is my word, the failings of patriarchal hierarchy and the marginalization of women broadly? Is there a path for systemic change out of which the notion of matriarchal leadership emerges, shows up differently with and on par with patriarchal systems. I'm not sure where I'm going with the question, but I'm concerned that what we need for the future has to be different from what we have right now. And what we have right now is a power-driven system that is exploitative, that is extractive, and that rewards the few who are invited to suppress and order without consent the lives of the many, to the degree that the many end up accepting their role in elevating and supporting and sustaining this use of power that, from Al McFarlane's point of view, is abusive. And from Al McFarlane's point of view, is there a solution? The question is there a way to reorder systems that reflect all of the gifts of all of the people, meaning that the gift of women has been marginalized? Maybe I'm wrong in that analysis, but I'm throwing it out. What are your thoughts? React if you would.
So, in thinking about your question, one of the quotes that has been so close to me in my career, I started out in corporate for 10 years. I was in financial services where I was typically the only. I was the youngest. And when you're in spaces like that where they teach assimilation, I can't assimilate to be an old white man. I'll never be that. I don't look that way. I don't think that way. I don't have the privileges that you have to move and shake in the world the way that you do. And so this quote by Toni Morrison, and I'm going to read it because I do not want to ruin it. I tell my students, when you get these jobs that you have been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free someone else. And if you have some power, then your job is to empower someone else. And ever since I heard that quote, I said, oh, that's going to belong to me now. Because my job in showing up as maybe the only, it wasn't about me remaining the only. It was about me knocking down doors and walls to make sure that others could walk through those things a lot easier than I had to. Mm-hmm. And what I think about systems change and why I get so excited, one, when people even talk about systems change, because you have to understand that systems change, the architects of that work are humans. And so we have to change, and we have to change what we're looking for and how we are engaging with others and putting out those expectations. So it's not just about doing your job well. It's about how are you creating ecosystems and spaces for people to show up as their unapologetic, authentic selves, because when there is psychological safety in the workplace, dynamic things can happen. And that's what we need to make sure that we are creating at a young age for our kids so that they get used to, oh, school is a psychological safe place. College is a psychological safe place. The workplace. We don't have to work so hard to heal adults from toxic spaces if we work on cultivating what healthy looks like.
Awesome. Paulette, what are your thoughts?
You know, I love everything that Marissa said. I think spot on. The other thing I want to point out is that we really do have an obligation to inflict change in these systems, right? Like, it is our job to make change in these systems. I think the one thing that I want to point out that's really cool that I've seen at Girl Scouts River Valleys is the idea that it is okay for us to make changes. It is okay for us to be bold with those changes. It is okay for us to be loud and proud, because if the systems don't change, then we cannot serve the communities that we want to serve. And when I worked at the college and when I worked in education, I would always stress to my students how the system worked. What is it that you're trying to do? And how does this system work? Was this system built for you? You can't say you're a failure at a system that was not built for you. So if it was not built for you, what things then do we need to advocate for, or what do we need to do to change it? And if we have an understanding of how those systems work and what we need to do to make changes in them, then and we fill in the gaps with the people that actually are really ready to do the work, because sometimes we have people that seemingly want to do the work and they're not there to do that. But when we put people in place that actually want to do the work, then we can start changing from the ground up. Now, overall, in terms of your question, there is a lot that needs to happen. The patriarchal system is there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. Instead of focusing though on all the things that have gone wrong and what we cannot change and what we cannot fix, it is my duty and my job to worry about what I can change, what I have the power to impact, and how I can impact and impress on future leaders to then go out there and make these same changes. So I think we have a lot of work to do. I think specifically here at Girl Scouts River Valleys, we've done a lot of work within the last several years, and we're going to continue to do the work. Also, I want to say our community should hold us accountable, right? And we should be holding every organization accountable. Do you know where you buy your products from? Who are you supporting? When we were talking earlier, we talked about, purchasing food from various vendors and local community places that we like. That is disrupting the ecosystem, right? And so it is our job to continue to do that, but also to teach our children and the children in our care to do the same thing.
So put on your mind's eye imagination and give me a 2-minute description of 2075, maybe 2102. What will have changed? What will you and those that you taught, that you mentored, have created in the world? And I don't know that we'll still have the United States as we see it right now, or if some of the geographic lines that we have become used to, and they're still only 300 or 400 years old, they're still relatively new, and there's nothing permanent about the geographical boundary overlay. Things may change. Technology gives us movement. I think you guys probably both read "The World Is Flat" or something like that. That book that talked about individuals can do what only states could do 100 years ago. And so, what's going to happen with this technology? What capabilities will we unleash, and how will you direct the development of wisdom, knowledge, and capability in the people that you're responsible for, so that they co-create a 2075 that works differently from today, or not? What do you think, Marissa?
Al, I definitely wanted to let Paulette go first with that, because when I heard 2075, I was like, ooh. I remember being in first grade and them saying, so what do you think it'll be in 2010? And you were just like,
What?
I don't know. We'll have spaceships as cars. I mean, Tesla, I mean, kind of, right? So when I think about 2075, I think I can only really put into the atmosphere what my hopes are. I hope that, by that time, the alpha generation will be essentially the silent generation to who we are now, right? So they'll be the elders. And my hope is that they grow up in a space where, because there was so much technology and maybe not as many human to human experiences, they work on their kindness. And that's a differentiation between nice, right? I want humans to engage with humans and express empathy, extend grace, and learn what it is to agree to disagree, but still coexist in harmony. I feel like we've lost that. And my hope is that by the time we get to that place, whether robots are running the world or not. Maybe they have, and then they go away, right? Because we realized, the robots just aren't cutting it. We need to get back to human connection.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my biggest hope for this world and for our youth is to discover grace, empathy, and kindness.
Paulette, what do you think?
I mean, I'm glad you answered first, Marissa. I'm just really glad. I'm glad. Because when I think about it from so many different angles. 2075, what we're doing now will be almost irrelevant, right? Like, the work is just the foundation, but they're going to take it to a whole new level. And so the one thing that I can impress on our youth is to think, we always say think outside the box, but truly think about the impossible, because it is possible. Impossible literally means I'm possible. So whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to be, that you think is impossible, in 2075, the chances are that you will be able to do that thing. The one thing that will remain the same is that each and every person that is alive in 2075 will have inside of them everything that they need to thrive in that world, whatever it looks like. So the one thing we can do is to continue to plant the seeds and let our youth know that every single thing they need to be successful, everything that they need to compete in a 2075 world, everything they need to drive the robotic cars, or maybe be driven around, without the drivers, whatever it is, that it is inside of them, and they have the opportunity to really play a part in whatever that looks like. You really make me scratch my head with that one. I think that's a great question.
I feel like it's a question we need to ask our high school girls. Like, okay, so what is the world going to look like? And I mean, I'm sure we're going to get very different responses.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're out of time, but what a wonderful conversation. But I want to close with you, Marissa, offering the invitation to our viewers and listeners and to our readers. We'll transcribe this interview, and it'll be a story in Insight News. And we want to make sure that we disseminate this conversation across as many platforms as we can. So make the invitation. How do we get families and girls invited to participate?
Absolutely. And so you can go to our website, and we can provide that girlscoutsrv.org, and you can sign up for Girl Scout Leadership Institute. We actually have the kickoff event tomorrow, right? So October 10th, we are so excited to invite all of those families to our Girl Scout Leadership Institute launch. And that's when you get to learn about, what are we going to do? What are we going to learn? Who are you going to bring to us? Where are you going to take us? World of Work tours is something amazing that we're working on, to be able to show you the inner workings of buildings that you've just seen the outside of, right? And so come learn about what the Girl Scout Leadership Institute is. Come learn about what Girl Scouts River Valleys is doing, not just for our daisies and our brownies and our young Girl Scouts, but come check us out. The teenagers, the tweenagers, we put a little Riz on Girl Scouts for you. And so we made it just for you. So we're excited to have you come. And we're going to have a great time this year.
Phone number or website again?
girlscoutsrv.org.
Awesome. That's how you connect. Thank you both so very much. What a wonderful conversation. And again, count us in. We're on your team.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Al.
Thank you so much, Al. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Well, let's not make this the last one. This is the beginning. Sure. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Thank you.